Hi, this is kind of a brief or kind of an understanding that I have regarding a leaky gut syndrome. This is something that is becoming popular as a nutrition jargon, and people are taking to it in numbers. You have people being able to convince people into it. Many of these people who are convincing people who are getting convinced are either non-medicos or medicos who probably have faintest of understandings of what they have studied. When I say that, I need to probably just pick something that is very intricately ingrained in the education system, and it suggests that when the embryo develops, when the tissues develop, there are certain mechanisms like contact inhibition or contact modulation that lead to various changes in tissue formations. These tissue formations, these structural changes happen to take shape into the form of different tissues and different organs. The assumption is more or less based on a two-dimensional picture. However, if you look at the 3D concept, the three-dimensional concept of cell biology, tissue structures and everything, the addition to cells of the same tissue is nowhere like brick and mortar without any spaces. No cell is a perfect square or a perfect rectangle or a polygon, and edge to edge each of the things meets. And in a 3D model, it is not even possible. So if you look at these structures three-dimensionally, the existence of spaces between these cells of each tissue or between different components of the tissues across an organ structure is very much there, existing right from the top to the bottom. This porosity is very much a part, and this porosity follows an interplay which is somewhere bridged by the extracellular fluid and the intracellular fluid maintaining a ionic gradient, and this ionic gradient creates electrostatic and electrodynamic voltage differences, those then influencing communication. This is how modern science puts tissue structure into. Now, the other aspect is the tube and tube plan, which says, if you look at it right from the top to bottom, either in a 2-dimension or 3-dimension, and cut it into a cross section, barring the left and right of the thorax and the abdomen, which diametrically oppose each other, across the tube and tube or across the middle of the alimentary canal, the body is divided into a right and into a left equally. If you look at it even in a 3D model, that is how it is presented. And the alimentary canal, right from the opening at the mouth till the anus, in between there is no structure which consumes importance, like it is a joint or a bend in a tube, and it is something like a pipeline that is running with various bends and T-points and etc., as in a civil engineering jargon. Rather, it is a continuous thread of tissues that is just built across. The other part of this is that if there is no continuation or discontinuation, the only modifications that exist are in the form of sphincters, which are moderate growths of the mesodermal tissue and influence separations within the alimentary canal into a stomach, into an intestine, into a duodenum, into different parts, or within the small intestines and large intestines as villi and microvilli, providing a huge surface area for absorption of the digested food. So if the intercellular space and intracellular space are guided by an ionic gradient, the intercellular space and intertissue space is already existing there, then how come there could be a leak or there could not be a leak? The anatomical concept of a leaky gut, therefore, is, to my interpretation, very much of a farce, because something that already exists cannot just be created. Yes, it blends into natural medicine, into Ayurvedic medicine, and there it meets the concept of am dosh or am, which is supposed to be a poisonous form produced as a result of poor digestion or improper digestion. This poor digestion or improper digestion is actually not the gastric digestion, but it is the cell level digestion or cellular digestion, to which the components of endoplasmic reticulum, the components of Golgi apparatus, the components of mitochondria, they play a large role, and it is more of organic and inorganic, or to say rather oxidative and anoxidative metabolism. So when it is an anoxidative metabolism under mitochondrial stress, the output is not as usual to be carbon dioxide and water, but rather an acidic form, which increases the acidity or acidic content of the cell inside, influencing an ionic gradient which will change the extracellular gradient of the fluid environment. That extracellular gradient and change of fluid environment gradient will probably influence a different kind of a communication. This communication can show off in or trigger conditions of pain, conditions of inflammation, conditions of chronic autoimmune behavior, where body itself is harming itself because of an oxidative stress. Now, this is not a new concept, a concept that existed in Ayurveda for ages, but probably has not been explored the way I'm talking about it, and is something that won a Nobel for its modern innovative presence or presentations way back when the concepts of oxidation and oxidative stress were evaluated in the very initial phases as to why antioxidants are important and why antioxidants play any significant role when it comes to disease management. Therefore, the concept of a leaky gut is perhaps a botched up concept, a messed up concept where anatomy and physiology have been mixed into one. And very rightly so, modern medicine does not conclude anything about a leaky gut because it is not easy to admit, or it is not easy to find a fault or a space which already exists. It is more of a physiological behavior which gets altered, and probably a physiological management that needs to be done about it. That's how medication works, and that's where medication needs to look into, which is probably what is compensated in modern medicine, either by the use of steroids or sometimes an irrational use of multivitamins and food supplements. Thank you.